Hey everyone, happy Wednesday. It's another interview day on IG Live. How's everybody doing? I'm gonna get a little face filter going. There we go. Hi Laura, gonna bring you on. Let's see here. Oh. Laura's coming. All right, Laura, I invited you. There you are.
I'm here.
Hey,
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good. How about
Good, good. I apologize ahead of time if you hear dogs or kids.
you? Oh, you're gonna hear my dogs too, so it's totally fine. They're really upset that they've just been kicked out of the room.
Dog problems.
So thanks so much. We'll let some more people gather in here.
Perfect.
But, I saw Bill. Bill is in the house.
Oh, nice.
That's him, right? No, that's who's Big? Oh, Big Stupid Fresh is your husband.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know why he's on here.
Hello, Mr. Bianchi. How's your day today?
It was good. I'm enjoying the nicer weather, especially when I have to go out to properties. It's definitely nice to have the warmer weather instead of being bundled and freezing.
Yes, it's like summer.
Not quite.
I was trying to explain to somebody from Portland who he was like, oh, okay. I was like, it's not about the cold weather. It's about the contrast. It's about coming from the cold into the spring that makes life worth living. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, it's not just about the cold. It's like you don't get to enjoy the spring if you don't have like winter to have to bear. I don't know.
Yeah, it's Olivia made a snowman with her friend next door, and it didn't make it very long. It's already melting.
Yeah.
So now we have like a pile of scarves out there right now. So we gotta get those.
Hi, Renee. Yeah, a bunch of people came in and then just like left immediately. So I don't know what happened.
We
I
were
don't know what happened. Your husband's not even. What's up with that?
I don't know. That's okay. He travels, so who knows what he's doing right now.
Got it. Okay.
So,
All right. Well, let's get started.
Okay.
So I want to know how you got into property management. The glamorous career of property management.
I actually started, I was a realtor in Riverview, a very small office, Remerica. And the owner, my broker, was kind of overwhelmed with just like the broker duties and doing property management. And she wasn't like really big, but it was a good portfolio just from word of mouth. And
what are we talking? Like how many units?
I would say there was about 36 of them. And
Okay.
it was more just single family homes in the Downriver area. And she asked me if I was interested in helping her. And helping her became like running the whole division after, about 6 months of me learning the ins and outs, because I was just getting into real estate at that point. So I wasn't quite knowledgeable, but she definitely was. So she kind of took me under her wing, and I kind of took it over from there.
Okay. And so, other than that, it was like just pretty standard type property management.
Yeah, that was probably my most low maintenance portfolio I've dealt with. So very easygoing. And
why do you think that is? Were they like just properties that were in better condition, or?
I think it just wasn't such a bit like it. First of all, it wasn't overwhelming, and the majority of the portfolio, we had 36 properties, and I think 22 of them were with one owner. So I think that's really what made it a lot easier. When you have a lot more properties with a lot of different owners, it gets harder to keep track of. And
yeah, And so, is that what brought you to Berkshire Hathaway? Like, did you come right from that broker like property management office over to our company?
So I was right from there. I went to Berkshire Hathaway in Dearborn.
Okay.
I managed that portfolio that had more of like 52, so a little bit more. Um, but I picked it up quickly. It was just something that I really actually enjoyed doing, believe it or not. And it just, I really kind of took off from there, and I knew that is exactly where I should be. I've always thought that you really need to have a good personality and a good fit for property management for it to not ruin your life. So,
Like me.
yeah.
So yeah, that's one thing that I can say about you is like you don't like you have the personality like that no matter how stressful it is, like you don't let it bother you. You seem to like you go home and like you just don't let it like affect you the way like I know it affected me, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there are some stresses like, oh, like in the back of my mind, like, oh man, I didn't get to that today. I got to get to that first thing in the morning. But at the end of the day, you just have to realize like you got to prioritize. Sometimes you won't get to that email that you wanted to answer, first thing. You might not get that to that, until the next day because you have to really prioritize what's important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to focus on the dumpster fire.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So at the last places, did you have people that worked under you, or was it just you, like a one-woman show?
It was just me and my contractors pretty much. So, um, it was just, and I did everything as far as like collecting the rent. If, the tenant was late, we would send out the, 7-day notices. We would also I would take care of all the financials because it was somewhat of a smaller portfolio and it was easy. And again, with that portfolio, I had out of the, 52 properties, I had an owner that owned 17 of them. So, I had more investors with multiple properties in that portfolio, so it was still low key in my experience, just because you have one, just a couple of point of contacts versus one for each property.
Mm-hmm. And so what is your setup like now at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, the loft warehouse?
So our setup is I feel we like have a very good mix of some owners that have individual just one unit, and then we have some owners that have multiple units. So I feel like it's a good mixture. It is definitely a higher portfolio than what I was used to,
Like
but
higher end, you mean?
it was more, well, that it's more luxurious. It's more luxurious property, but also just higher end as far as like the quantity, the amount, the volume that we're
Mm-hmm.
really managing.
What are you managing? Like close to 200 now? Do you?
Yeah, we have some owners that after, a tenant didn't renew a lease, they would renovate the unit and then sell it. It was a good time for them to do that. So, but yeah, we're creeping up there on 200 properties now
Mm-hmm.
and taking on more as we, get referrals and talk to more people. So I'm really interested in to see this portfolio grow now. I feel like we have good systems in place and that we're more organized to be able to handle more properties at this point.
That is great. Because I know how hard it is to feel like you could like get ahead, focus on the wildly important goals versus the dumpster fires.
Yes, yes.
um, but so as far as just because I know what the portfolio is like, and so do probably some people watching, but there are going to be some people that don't know. So if you can you tell people like I know it's mostly condominiums, but
Mm-hmm.
do you do other types of properties too? What areas does the company specialize in?
So we specialize in Detroit luxury condos. That's what we're really geared towards. building the portfolio, but we have some in the other neighborhoods of Detroit. We have also a few multifamilies and single family homes. As you know, we got rid of a few of the actual single family homes with, you know, the owners deciding to sell. But for the most part, they are the condominiums. They're either like the townhomes or the, you know, in the high rise condominiums. So that's really what our portfolio is consisted of. I think we are now venturing out to more of, you know, kind of getting more in, like we have the, of course, the condo high rises, but also, you know, bidding more of multifamily units. So, you know,
like apartment buildings,
yes.
kind of like more than 4 units.
Yeah. So that's what I think we're trying to start setting ourselves up for now, to be able to offer our services not just to individual condo units.
And would you do management in other cities, or are you just trying to stick to downtown and Detroit properties?
We do have a few in, you know, the close cities surrounding Detroit. I think we're open to it, and being knowledgeable, of course, is our biggest thing. Of being knowledgeable of the city code and what is required by the city is very important. And how much time we really spend. Do we have a big enough team for that? You know, we really evaluate when we get a new property management lead of if we can, we try to, you know, we're trying to market that we are giving this luxury, high quality service to these individual, and we're allowed to do that because our office is right in the Eastern Market. So we're so close, you know, to all our units right now. So, you know, are we able to service them and give them that luxury, high quality service that we want to provide? We don't want to, you know, set this expectation and not be able to meet it.
Got it. And I'm going to ask you about services that you provide next, but I just want to just take a pause for a second. So anybody that came in a little late, I'm interviewing Laura Bianchi. She is the Director of Property Management from Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, the Loft Warehouse, where, full disclosure, I am the broker there. So we already know each other, but I wanted to interview her because I used to basically do her job, and until I just had enough. And so yeah, I have a lot of respect for what you do because I know how hard it is. So
thank you.
So yeah, so what does a property manager do?
We do it all pretty much. We
Therapist,
what hat would you like me to wear today?
babysitter.
No, I mean, so the basic services we have to offer is, of course, tenant screening, finding you a qualified tenant for your property, and of course, pricing your unit so we get a lot of traffic, we get a lot of applicants, and we minimize the vacancy of the unit itself. We also, with those services, after the tenant is placed, of course, we do rent collections and maintenance, repairs. We manage that and kind of streamline it so it's very minimal. And you know, when we do a unit turn, when a property becomes vacant and we do a unit turn, we really try to make sure we go through it with a fine tooth comb. So then that way we have less things, you know, later down the road as the tenant moves in. So we take care of all the rent collections, but also if there's any, you know, tenants in default, then we take care of, you know, 7-day notices and getting those filed with the courts and things like that.
I remember like right during the shutdown, when like during the most intensity of COVID, like in the, you know, early spring, I remember you guys like saying very proudly that like you had very few tenants that stopped paying rent. You know, you were, and the ones that did, you were able to work with them and get them caught up and everything. So
Yes.
so has it been like that since then, or you know, has it been a fairly easy go, or have you had tenants who have had some some problems with
For
their
the most
lease?
part, we really had a great, and I think that's also the qualifications we set for tenants as well, like them having financials, but also savings and things like that for a rainy day, right?
Mm-hmm.
No one expected this to really happen to any of us, but I would say we are still going strong with that. We have probably one that we are still working with, that we've been working with throughout COVID, to get him back on track and help him. And, he's very fortunate, and we're very fortunate that we have the homeowner that is willing to work with him as well
Mm-hmm.
at this point. So that we are running into, not so much in the beginning, but right now we have just, I would say, one or two that have ended up having to terminate their lease early just because they are, still furloughed and they're not getting any income right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the owners have been definitely understanding of that with COVID, and we're just working on getting them leased out right away and finding them a new tenant.
Good. What else? So because when you manage condominiums, though, you also have to deal with HOAs. Can you talk a little bit about like what kind of things, what kind of interface you have to do with the HOAs and the HOA management companies?
So the interface we usually deal with them is any building related issues, any leaks that are not necessarily something we can necessarily fix. We also deal with them as far as fines. And for instance, we have some townhomes that, you can't store your garbage cans outside the garage. We have quite a few tenants that just don't like to pull them in when it's cold. That's really our big thing right now. But that's really, and also our interface with the HOA is also notifying them that a new tenant is moving in and giving them all their proper, contact information for if they need to gain access to their unit for a leak, just to have something checked, or, things like that. So we work pretty closely with the HOA, and I feel like for all of our HOAs that we deal with on a daily, I mean, almost a daily basis, we have such a good rapport with them. They can call us anytime and vice versa.
Right. And because you usually manage multiple units in one HOA, they
Mhm.
know they can reach out to you and handle. They don't have to, like you have control over multiple units. It's not just like one owner, one owner, one owner. So,
Right. So it's definitely nice, and just making sure that they're aware that we're trying to work with them as well, right?
mhm.
So, but getting building issues fixed and following up with them, it's just a daily process that we, deal with. And unfortunately, there are leaks.
So, if somebody wanted to, um, like hire you as a property manager, can you walk me through what that looks like as far as like getting them like signed on and integrated, and then what kind of like what is their involvement after that?
Okay. So onboarding, is what we kind of like disclose it as, is onboarding a new homeowner. We go through the property, of course, the proper documentation. So we have them fill out an owner sheet, information sheet, and that's a little questionnaire of, will we be paying the HOA dues on your behalf? Who's responsible for these following utilities? Just really to get to know, so we don't have to run into, oops, I forgot to pay the HOAs, or, we have a balance over here. So really getting familiar with the owner and what they expect from us, as far as, property taxes. Do you want us to take a look at those for you twice a year and, put you on the schedule to, pay them from your rent? So that is definitely something, that is one of our very first steps. But in the introduction to them, I just go over the services offered, what we charge, and what they can expect from us for that fee, that they pay us monthly. So from there, once we get the property management agreement signed and all of this questionnaire filled out, we then onboard them into our AppFolio system.
And
From there,
App,
huh?
Appfolio is.
AppFolio is our software program
Okay.
that makes my life a lot easier. So it actually tracks everything all in one spot, which is really nice. And I love that part of it. So we get them transferred into the system, and they get a welcome email with their owner portal where they can find all of their monthly statements, all of their lease documents for their tenants, their property management agreement. It's all in one spot. We try to make it as easy as possible for them, along for, with us as well. Everything's all in AppFolio, and we can gain access to AppFolio from anywhere. So their involvement really after is, of course, having to approve if the unit is vacant, they of course have the final say of, being approved and having a tenant move in. So that is their first really step one of their involvement after we onboard them. From there, we are in contact with them for every maintenance request that comes in. I notify them. Even we have a maintenance limit of $200. So if we have a work order that is going to be under $200, we still notify them so they're not shocked when they get their monthly payment that, wait, why is it short $115? So we notify them and let them know that is going to come out of next month's rent. But also, if anything is over $200, we get their approval. At the end of the day, we're spending their money, so we need their approval, and they really need to be involved in what's really going on with the unit. And from there, so there's their involvement throughout the lease. And then we also have the leasing team that reaches out to them about 70 days prior to their lease expiration. So, would they like to offer a lease renewal to this tenant? If they want to increase it, what the new terms are, all of those things. So that's really their involvement from there. If we don't have maintenance requests, then they get an email from the system that they get paid every month, and that they can also open their owner statement for that month, through their portal.
And do you get a lot of owners like calling you, to talk about, they want to go over their owner statement, or they want to like talk about the tenant? I mean, or do most people just want to collect their rent and go about their day?
Well, we have, with our system in place of notifying our owners of every work order that comes in, and, that they're to expect money coming out, it really minimizes their questions about their owner statements of, wait, where'd that come from and why, things like that. So that really minimizes a lot of the questions. The only time, and even if a tenant doesn't pay and, we sent a 7-day notice, the owner is aware of that when the 7-day notice goes out, so that they're still aware of what's going on with their unit. They're not totally clueless of what's happening, but it really minimizes the phone calls from the owners on that aspect. So, but I don't really have that many owners that call me just to ask a bunch of questions, unless they, really don't understand something. But it's pretty self-explanatory. When you get your owner statement, you see the money coming in, the money going out.
So what about the opposite? Do you have owners that are so removed from the process that, you're like, okay, I appreciate you giving my autonomy, but I actually need you to make some decisions right now?
Actually, I would have to say our portfolio is really good about responding. I actually had one recently that I was really worried about him because he was not responding to my email, and I really needed an approval to move forward on a task. And I was nervous something happened to him because he's always responds. And so when I don't get an owner response, I start to worry about their well-being in general.
Because usually they're just so responsive otherwise.
Yes, usually.
So let's see. So we talked about services. Are there any services you feel like the company provides that are like kind of above or and beyond like what other property management companies provide?
Well, we do provide, so if you choose that your rental property is something that you want to sell later on when a tenant is moving out, we do offer to help facilitate a renovation project. So we've done several of those. That is kind of separate from what we charge monthly. We charge a 10% fee depending on, the renovation, like timeline and how much time is really being spent on that project. That is probably my favorite part.
So you get to decide like based on what the market you think like the market that what price they're trying to attain from a resale. Like you kind of help them decide you need to update this, you need to do this, don't do that. That's not going to be worth your time. Like that sort of
So
stuff.
a lot of our landlords have a close relationship with agents such as yourself in the office, or Jerome or Sabra, and they really have a scope of work that I get to tackle, and help facilitate and execute that for them. And that is definitely my favorite part of all of it. I think I've always had a passion for design and flipping pretty much. And it's just my favorite part of it.
So you get to pick out, you'd like to pick out the finishes and light fixtures and paint colors and all of that stuff here if you have the opportunity.
Yeah, if I'm allowed, I definitely go with that.
So the little bit of like creativity that you get to flex.
Yes, because
Yeah.
like my husband always says, he's like, you were made for this, everything. We built our home, but then I changed every little piece in here
Oh,
already.
I've seen your room redesigns, and you've got some good stuff going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it could be really rewarding because it's like there's a definite beginning and an end to
Mhm.
a property renovation. I mean, obviously your own home, you're going to continue to have projects, but
Oh yeah.
for like these flips, like you have a beginning and an end, and then you're like it's rewarding because you can see it completed. Whereas like one thing that I always thought about property management, it never ends. Like it's
Oh
like
yeah.
it's just like you fix that and something else breaks. Like you get this much paid, you're gonna have to collect rent. It's just like there's no like beginning and an end. It
No, it just keeps
is.
going. It's
So you have
repetitive.
so you appreciate when things actually have an end, and you can
Yeah, I mean,
like
I love to see the transformation because I've gotten to see it from beginning to end. So, and during. So it's really fun to see and kind of play with different things and really see what people love, right?
we got a recognition response from Lolita when we said property management never ends. I think
Oh no.
I think she enjoyed that.
Yeah.
um, okay. So I wanted to ask you, like, what is the benefit to an owner to work with a property manager versus just managing it themselves? Like, why should they hire a property manager?
Well, I mean, to make it really simple, we take away the headache, right? Owners, I've met so many that have gotten that they think they want to be a landlord and then they have one bad experience and they're just like, forget it, I'm selling everything. Whereas a property manager, you're aware of what's still going on with your unit, but the property manager really deals with, what I would call the headache of everyday, maintenance, or a tenant not paying, or tenant complaints. We really take that aspect, for the owner. So I think that's really the biggest benefit, is that you can still be a landlord, but, really just reap the benefits right from it, right? Not always have the headache.
Right, rely on the professionals who actually
Yeah,
assist you.
let us do our job, and
Mhm.
this is why we're in the place that we're in, and to make your life easier.
Yeah. I just want to thank everybody for joining. Just want to, for people who have just come in, I'm interviewing Laura Bianchi. She is the Director of Property Management for Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, the Loft Warehouse, where we both work. And and if anybody has any questions, put them in the comment box and we will answer them. You are welcome to ask questions. So what is the benefit for a tenant to rent from a company to rent a property that is property managed versus, just an owner managed property?
Well, I feel like with a property management company and being a tenant, you really, of course, we have those landlords out there that don't do anything. They get the tenant and then they just expect to collect the rent and never have to fix anything. So with that, you're working with a professional company that is, we have a level of service to maintain and we have a reputation to maintain. So we try to make our tenants happy, comfortable, and we build this relationship with them. Some of these tenants, they're long gone for a year now, and I still check in on them just to see how they're doing because you just build a relationship with them, and they trust you, and they really depend on you. And I think that's really the biggest benefit is really protecting you as a tenant.
Right, because if you just are relying on like the one owner, then maybe they may not be as consistent in
Right. And then, repairs or they forget. I've met many investors that do it on their own, that they have open work orders for months for simple garbage disposal because they're just so busy. They're stretched so thin. Whereas, we have a team that really handles and takes care of those things right away. We try to get these turned over, in record time. Within 24 hours, we try to get the issue resolved.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's great. I'm sure the tenants really appreciate that.
Yeah, we've been getting really good feedback.
Good. That's great. That means that you've improved things significantly since since I was involved. So how can an owner get the most out of a property manager? Like how can they make their relationship with the property manager most productive?
Number one, I feel like they really need to trust us as their property manager and really take in consideration our suggestions, especially during unit turnovers. If you want to do the bare minimum and, your property is going to sit there vacant. It's, you're not going to get many people and you're not going to get top dollar for that unit. So really be mindful of what we're really suggesting. We're not suggesting to spend all this money for no reason. It's going to pay off later on to keeping a tenant happy and them really loving the space so they renew their lease over and over again. We've had tenants in these properties for 4 or 5 years and they renew every time. So because they're happy and they enjoy the space. So, when you try to take the cheaper way out, it really doesn't pay off because people end up, not really loving the space that they're living in for, a year. They're in there for a minimum of 1 year.
Yeah, or not feeling like the landlord cares about them. Like the landlord doesn't want to invest in their tenancy. So, that's what I remember thinking. The owners that always wanted to do the repair versus replacement for something that really should have been replaced.
And then it's a frustration when it breaks again later down the road. It's frustration for the tenant, and then the tenant feels like they deserve a compensation, and then we have to go through that. Whereas if we just would have replaced it to begin with, we would have all been happy ever after, right? So that's really my biggest thing, is just really trusting your property manager, and that we're just not here to just spend your money. We're really trying to look out for your best interest in your property.
Yeah. we have a question from an audience member.
Okay.
Cooper wants to know, do management companies typically coordinate HOA payments for owners? And I know you touched on that a little bit earlier, but if you can go over that again.
So the way we set it up is we let the owner decide if they would let us, do they want us to coordinate that and pay that on their behalf and then take it from their rent, or if they will pay it directly. So it's really an owner decision whether they want us to pay for the HOA out of their rent or if they're going to pay it directly.
And is there a benefit one way or the other?
And I think it's a benefit to have us really monitor that, because we also do HOA checks on our whole entire portfolio quarterly. So then that way, if there is a balance, we try to catch it before it's really a huge balance. So I think it's beneficial, but also tax purposes for an owner, because we send the report and it has the HOA expenses on there, and it's all in one spot versus it being scattered all over the place.
Having to go through your own bank statement and find, you just have the property management statement.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is the same question, but what advice do you have for your owners? Is there one thing that you wish you could tell a lot of them?
It was almost kind of along the same line. It's just really trust what we're doing, right? I know there's owners that I've met, a lot of owners that have had terrible experiences with property management companies, but we really are dedicated to provide this luxury and high level service to our owners, but also our tenants. So I feel like we have good relationships all over, instead of, this feeling like this property manager is just out to collect money and then, that's it.
Are those some of the complaints you hear about people who work with other property management companies, just not being a good fiduciary for their money? What else are the nightmare stories that you've heard?
People really, you hear more of the nightmare stories of that, the tenant moved in and they were really not qualified, and our leasing team is wonderful. She does her due diligence. Janae does her due diligence with every single applicant, and she really verifies all the information and makes sure it's valid information and it's not fake or a fake report. So that's one thing that I hear nightmares of, but also that they are charged for a maintenance item and the maintenance was never really fixed, so I've heard that a lot as well. And then just lack of communication. If you just talk to them and you're open with them, they have a higher level of respect for you, and vice versa. So they just don't feel like you're doing something behind their back.
Yeah. Let's see. Have you ever had, so what are some common tenant issues? Are garbage disposals and plumbing still the biggest?
Garbage disposals, we have a set price. When I see a work order for a garbage disposal, I already notify the owner. We're going to try to fix it, but if we need a new one, it's X amount of dollars, because I already know it's coming. But, the garbage disposal is the most used appliance, I feel like. Mine's always jammed or doing something. So yeah. I can only imagine. So garbage disposals are definitely a main thing. And one thing we do, tenants love to get dogs after they move in. They just love it.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, what do you mean? Do I have to get that approved? So we only had a couple so far, but we end up getting them approved. And of course, we want your fur babies to be a part of your life as well, right? But just don't be sneaky about it.
I'm totally guilty of that. When I got my first dog, my landlord, I was out walking in the front yard, and my landlord's like, "Oh, you got a dog?"
You're like, crap.
I'm like, "Oh yeah, I guess I probably should have told you."
Can he stay?
So. And then do you guys charge, like I know in the leases it states that you have the discretion to charge. Is that one of your dogs?
Yes, that's my husky. He's talking.
Huskies are so dramatic.
Oh, this one's very dramatic.
So I know in the leases it says that there's like a $50, usually a $50 charge for maintenance. And that's kind of like at the landlord's discretion, you
Right.
know. Do you use that? Have you had to use it in the past? Under what circumstances? Or are you charging tenants for repairs?
So, for instance, we have tenants that we do like famous tenants love to clog the bathroom sink drains with their hair. Always. And you know, when I go out and snake it and then I have to come send a contractor out in another week for the same issue and he's pulling out hair, you're going to be charged back for the full thing, not just 50, right? The $50 is really helping with tenants that they don't call me for a light bulb because they know they're going to get charged with $50. They're just going to change the light bulb themselves, right? So that's definitely, I love that feature just because I just think that, you know, of course, the high ceiling lofts, I don't expect a tenant to get on a 12-foot ladder and change the light bulb. But, you know, a little sconce light, change the light bulb. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I know I love tenants who would ask me to tighten a loose doorknob. I'm like, you don't own a screwdriver? like what are your parents?
You need to watch
YouTube.
YouTube will teach you anything.
I'm sure your daughters are gonna like have their own little toolkits and know how to use basic tools.
Listen, they're not. I'm not doing it for them.
Olivia like a power drill for her like 15th birthday.
yes. You know, I mean, I just feel like you should know basic things. You know, it's just, I don't know. I just think that it just saves a lot of time on everybody's part, right? You're not waiting for me to unjam something when you know how to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think I also used to, you know, warn tenants about that $50 charge because it's like, if you had a leaking sink and like an outlet that wasn't working and you didn't tell me about both of those things at the same time, like then you're just like, then I'm paying more to have somebody come back a second time because you're not like being thoughtful about your maintenance requests, you know?
They're always, you know, that's one thing I do run into with tenants is that they're so nervous to put in more than one maintenance request. You know, I rather send, I can send the handyman out for 5 different things in one call and it's going to be cheaper for me to do that instead of sending them out 5 separate times. So, that's definitely something that, you know, they get nervous, like we're going to get mad or we're going to evict them, but that's not the case at all.
Have you had to evict anybody recently?
Not recently. You know, when I started 3 years ago, first time I've ever had to hire a bailiff, and I've only had to do that once. So that was really nice. But it was a scary experience, I'm not going to lie.
You had to get the dumpster and everything.
Yep, order the dumpster, and then I've never had an eviction go that far in my career. So
they usually move out on their own.
Yes, and this one just wasn't moving out, and I've never experienced this, but I remember standing on the sidewalk. It was nice outside, and you know, 5 black tinted SUVs are like pull up, and all these big guys are getting out. I was like, I might die today.
No, they're gonna make sure you don't. That's why they're there.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, oh no, I'm here to protect you. And I was like, okay, thanks. I appreciate that.
Is that Bailiff Bell?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, he was always very imposing. Like you felt safe with him, but you knew that nobody should mess with him.
Yeah, no.
So. He came and he brought backup.
Yeah, exactly. But like I said, with being a more luxury portfolio, we really don't run into many evictions like that. So that's one thing I'm really proud of, that we don't have to evict people that often.
That's good.
Yeah, it's a wonderful feeling, especially in this business. It's like, I conquered it.
Has an owner ever like refused to do maintenance?
Yes.
And how do you handle something like that? Like what was the reason? Could they not afford it or they didn't think it was necessary? And then how do you handle that? Because I know the tenants would write me like a bad review and I'm like, it's not me. I would fix it.
Yeah, yeah. Not necessarily in this portfolio I've had that problem, but in a previous portfolio I had a landlord that just didn't want to fix it. And it was like a garbage disposal, and I just really felt bad for the tenant, but um how I usually deal like in this portfolio, we it's a very um rare that it even happens, but when it does, I eventually get to talk to the landlord and really get them to understand why this should be done. Of course, I'm dealing with a tenant that is upset that, it's taking so long to get this item fixed, but I just really, the line of communication is really the biggest thing. Avoiding them is just going to tick them off. If you communicate with them and you're just completely honest with them, they're more understanding. Some tenants have just fixed it themselves. But so one tenant, like I said in my last portfolio, I ended up just paying for the garbage disposal because I mean, it's just, I'd rather do that than so.
Right.
But yeah, it's very rare that our owners that I like maintenance items. There are some owners like for unit turns, I run into that more where, oh well, I don't want to do a full paint. Let's just do the bare minimum. Let's do, a touch-up paint. And, I just always tell them, okay, but just keep in mind that somebody could walk through here and just offer you a full term lease, but they want the unit painted. So then we're going to be spending money twice.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. And so you guys have had to deal with some disasters as well, as far as like insurance claims and
mhm.
talk about what kind, in the event of a claim, and usually it's a flood or something.
Yes.
Somebody leaves the bathtub on and above and it overflows, or a pipe bursts in the winter. I mean, these things happen, that's why we
Mhm.
have insurance. But can you talk about like what your involvement is in a process like that?
Yeah. So it never fails that it always happens in the middle of the night.
Of course. Can't
So,
happen at 2 o'clock on a Wednesday.
no, no. So, for instance, we had a hot water tank fail, and my first step is always getting on the phone with the tenant, really trying to understand what's going on because tenants really don't, when they're in a panic, they don't understand how to really describe something to somebody with, full detail. So I really understand what's happening. So once I start getting an idea, and, I feel like our whole team that is in the property management division is very knowledgeable of what can go wrong and how to shut it off, so especially water. So I really just get on the phone with them and I walk them through it. As I'm walking them through it, of course, I'm putting my shoes on and I'm headed down there. Just to get my eyes on it and really make sure that the property is, less damaged, the better. So, of course, trying to shut the water source off if it's a leak. I try to talk them through that, but I get on site and really evaluate the damage of what's being taken place. We have, as soon as I'm off the phone with the tenant, I call our 24-hour maintenance. They're always on call. So I call them and they're usually meeting me down there within an hour, 2 hours, depending on what they already have going on for that particular night. So, but I get my own eyes on the actual thing, so I can really describe to the owner what's taking place. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I do make a phone call to the owner no matter what time it is, just to let them know. But I always follow it up if I don't reach them with an email. Because with technology nowadays, I can send them an email while I'm there with photos, with videos, things of what's going on. So if, in the instance that I can't get a hold of them, and what I do is I really try to secure less damage to the property. So I start getting the water extracted and fans on it. And that's as far as I will go without an owner approval. But in an emergency in that situation, I really try to protect their property like it's mine.
Yeah.
So it's usually a late night of coordinating and making sure that the mitigation team is doing their job and they're in there, and making sure that the tenant is understanding of what's coming next. Right? Of course, we're going to have, an insurance claim, and the insurance adjuster is going to have to come through and take a look at it and really evaluate the situation. So I try to set the tenant up to know that this is a long process, unfortunately, and it unfortunately happens, but we are going to work on it every day. I had one just recently in December, and I was on the phone with the insurance company every other day, like just staying on top of them. It was just part of, like, I put it in my calendar and set my phone as an alert. I called them every day at the same time. They hated me, but I got it done. Yeah.
Did you do what you said you were going to
do? Yeah. Where's the insurance adjuster? I really need to get this unit back together, So, but yeah, so it's just, we really just communication, right? Keeping the tenant updated, keeping the owner updated. And the owners are always so grateful that they do not have to deal with it like in the forefront, right? So
yeah, I was gonna say that's just another reason to hire a property manager. Like, do you want to have to wake up out of your bed at 11 o'clock at night to go figure out what you're going to do because you've never experienced anything like this before? Or do you want to hire somebody that's going to handle this for you from the beginning to the end?
Exactly. And I mean, I've even had it to the point where I was out with my kids and they had to go with me. Like, all right, we got a pipe, we got to go. So they're used to that lifestyle with me. They're ready to go any other, all day, every day. But yeah, I mean, it's just really, and we keep a copy of the owner's policy on file, so we know exactly who to contact. So that's another thing. It's just streamlining it and having these processes in place and really being able to make it work and make it easy for all parties.
Cooper wants to know, what's the craziest pet you've seen an applicant want to move in with?
Oh, the pets haven't really been too crazy. No one's ever really reported that they have like anything other than a dog or a cat. So I haven't seen anything crazy. I did have one lady that had her whole dining room lined with like rodent cages, and I don't know what they were. I didn't really want to investigate too much. All I knew was they stunk so bad.
But did they have rodents in them?
Yeah, they were like guinea pigs or something. Okay. But yeah, it was 2 walls of just cages from floor to ceiling. And I'm like, what is this? And then they had like a sheet over it during the day so it could sleep. And I was like, I don't know what's in there, but I'm not trying to make it mad. No, thank you.
Any other fun stories? Like any tenant nonsense that you've had to deal with?
Well, my most recent one was actually today, to be honest. I get a work order for door is broken. And I'm like, okay, can I get a little bit more detail here? Like, so I call him and he doesn't answer, but
like, who broke the door?
Yeah. And keep in mind, in the hallway of this specific unit, there's 2 cameras. So I'm looking at I go to the unit and I'm looking at it and I'm like, somebody totally kicked this door in. Like, you gotta be kidding me. And so finally the tenant calls me back and he's like, well, I need 2 fobs too, because mine are lost. And I said, all right, okay, like, let's get the real story here. Your door is kicked in and you have 2 lost fobs, or are you trying to keep somebody out? Like, please, like, just be honest with me. So that is definitely something that is a challenge as a property manager too, is just, you get lied straight to your face all the time. And he's like, I don't know how that happened. I put the key in and it just didn't it just split. And I was like, no, no, that's not even possible.
I think I know exactly what apartment you're talking about because I ran into Bill there yesterday.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Fixing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's always something.
Mm-hmm. It is
So
always something. Yeah, I think that the nonsense that tenants put you through. My two best stories were I had a tenant who couldn't pay the rent because her husband got arrested for shimmying up the electrical pole to try to reconnect the electrical. That was a good one. And then the tenant who was hiding in the basement under a mattress to try to avoid paying rent.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, I hate when like you try calling them and then like they stare at you. You go knock on the door and they stare at you through the peephole and I'm like, I can see you. Like I know you're right there. So, but yeah, nothing too crazy, but you know,
Yeah,
we all have those stories.
yeah, I mean, the Loft Warehouse portfolio is for the most part very high end, different kind, the tenants I think are gonna, they're gonna have their own idiosyncrasies, but it's certainly for the most part going to be easy, normal stuff. So
Yeah. They just want a nice unit and they just want to live comfortably. Like that's really all they want.
And they want to be left alone, like they want
Yeah.
their stuff to work and then leave us alone.
Exactly.
I'll pay my rent, you leave me alone.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I feel like that's a fair game for all of us.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't want to call you if I don't have to.
So is there anything that you think we didn't discuss that would be important for somebody to know who maybe would be considering property management? So if somebody watching this says, you know what, that sounds, so how do you vet a property management company? Like, let's say you're trying to decide between a couple different ones, who would be a good fit? Like, what kinds of things should you ask? What should you be looking for?
So my biggest thing with, and I've worked in obviously a couple different property management companies, and the things that you really need to ask are, what are your fees? Hidden or not, right? Because a lot of property management companies have hidden fees, like, oh, I'm going to take 10% of your rent, but I'm also going to charge you for every maintenance order, every time I go to your property, they charge you they nickel and dime you to death, really. And it makes it very unpleasant for a landlord experience. So I feel with the Loft Warehouse, we have it really, like I said, we're really providing this high level service at an affordable price. It's a flat fee. It's, there is no hidden in between the lines. That's what you get, and you get all of these services offered and taken care of for you for, a flat fee. And it's just, that's my biggest thing. It's always really understand what they're charging you for, because I've heard so many nightmares of, that, oh, I got charged, $1,000 for, what was it? I think it was a new toilet or something. $1,000. Why?
Must
What
have
are
been
you doing?
old toilet.
Yeah. Yeah, gold time.
Or like a Toto with like a heated seat.
Yeah. Does it clean itself? That's all I want to know.
Right.
So, but yeah, really looking into the property management fees, because, they might say, yeah, 10%, but their contract really says that they charge you to meet DTE if they have to, or, things like that. So.
Well, Laura, thank you so much for joining me. This was super fun to
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
More about what you do. And so if somebody wants to call and or contact you to start property management services or to talk to you some more, what would be the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Best thing is to call the office. We have our property management line. That's 313-995-9031, but we also have the main line. I usually just the phone call is really the best thing, is how they can really get a vibe and they're actually talking to a real person, right? About the services and answer all their questions. So just a simple phone call is really the best way.
And that main phone number is 313-658-6400.
Yeah.
Right? I'm glad I remembered that.
Yeah.
It would be not great if I didn't. Okay. Have a good night, and I will see you at the office.
All right, you too. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching.